Crash Course Period 3 by Alfredo Olson. And today we will be covering time period 3. If you're going over this content in class, or if you're cramming or studying for the final exam, then this will be suited for you. Okay, so time period 3. Let me look at my notes. Time period 3 begins in 1754 at the beginning of the 7 Years' War, also known as the French and Indian War, and then ends in the 1800. Well, in 1800, with the election of Thomas Jefferson, as President of the United States. Alright, so in 1754, why it begins in 1754 is because of the French and Indian War. So France basically is removed from North America. France and Britain are jostling to become the power in what we now call continental USA. So as a result of that, they're going to have a war, and they do have a war, and it was between the French, British, and the Indians. And the Indians were kind of like mercenaries because they fought on both the French side as well as the British sides. Different tribes fought for different sides. And the American colonists were, of course, on the British side. After the war, Britain had a lot of debts to pay, and the result of that was putting these debts on the American colonists. And at this time, the colonists had enjoyed a lot of wealth. They had salutary neglect. They could do a lot fiscally. They could trade. Their economy was booming, and so the result of the 7 Years' War left Britain with a huge debt, and so they thrust this upon the American colonists. Because of these war debts, Britain taxed the colonists on many things: Sugar Act, Molasses Act, Stamp Act, and then basically they taxed many products which the colonists needed or exported, and so they would gain money from that. The colonists, of course, did not like this because Britain was taking away their money, and basically the result of the 7 Years' War, which is the year that this started, the time period starts, ended salutary neglect, and that leads into the American Revolution because of the hostilities which Americans had towards the British because of this. And so, common sense. The Americans had a new philosophy here, and it was spread partially from the Enlightenment, actually, from John Locke, Montesquieu. All of these two philosophers had a huge impact on how Americans viewed natural law as well as the ability to be free. And this got into the mentality of Americans and proved to be one of the best benefits that they had in the war, because they had a mentality that it was their right to be free. And this benefited them in huge ways later on during the Revolutionary War. One of the main reasons that they won, you may see a question on this on the AP exam about why were the Americans successful, or maybe why did the Americans rebel, like what fueled that, and that would be a great one to add on there. Alright, next, Declaration of Independence. So we had when tensions escalated, Lexington and Concord, first two battles of the Revolutionary War. And I won't go into great detail there. Basically, the British and the Americans had a standoff. They realized it was not going to be a short war. And so the result of that was a long war ending at Yorktown with the British's surrender. There are many battles, Bunker Hill, Saratoga. Saratoga is a major one because that's what got the French's help towards the Americans, and that ultimately benefited the Americans vastly. So, 1776, Declaration of Independence, and let me put on my colonial hat. I had a little flag. Oh, here it is. um, this is actually a replica of the flag. Yay, America! Woo! So yeah, 13 stars for the 13 colonies. Okay, so we won. America won the American Revolution. Thus, we became our own country. Okay, and so we won. 3 factors. Saratoga, France helps us. We won because of support from Europe, and we had the ideology of freedom helped by John Locke and Montesquieu. Montesquieu helped establish federalism, 3 branches of government. You can remember that. Montesquieu, executive, judicial, and legislative branches of the government. Okay, Articles of Confederation. Those were very weak. It believed in a weak central government. And the weaknesses of that, we could not tax, no national military, and you needed 9 out of 13 states to pass laws. So it was very hard to pass laws to benefit America, young America. All 13 colonies had to agree to amend the Articles of Confederation, which was very hard to do at this time. Imagine having 13 friends agree all on a controversial idea. It's hard to do. Okay. Northwest Land Ordinance. Northwest Land Ordinance said that about 60,000 inhabitants to a state. It outlawed slavery in the Northwest, so that would be around California. Well, it wasn't established at this time, but around the Northwest of what they knew as continental USA. Helped establish public institutions to teach citizens of the United States at this time. All right, the Constitution rolls around. The Articles of Confederation crumbles, and the Constitution is written, helped by Thomas Jefferson, who was the writer. Federalism is the separation of powers, hence Montesquieu's contribution to this mentality of a government. It says it prevents one branch of government from abusing its power. So through a system of checks and balances, government is put in check. The 3 branches of government have powers which over each other, and checks and balances. Great thing. A series of compromises with limits on national powers. That's another thing about the Constitution. Great Compromise, established by cameral legislator. The House of Representatives, the House of Representatives based on population. Equal representation is the Senate. 3/5 Compromise, 60% of slaves would count as population towards representation. So this was another issue which deals with slavery, which we will see later on in American history. The Constitution postponed this. Actually, the Slave Trade Compromise outlawed international slave trade after 1808, ending the slave trade from Africa to here. The Bill of Rights the Constitution basically postponed a solution to the problems of slavery. So they postponed the issue of slavery, which we will later see on in the Civil War, which went on to play a huge impact. It had a huge impact on America as we know it today. Okay, the Bill of Rights. After the Constitutional Convention, it occurred after the Constitutional Convention. The Bill of Rights gives a citizen their rights to speech, all of that jazz. Okay, George Washington's farewell address. After George Washington left his presidency, after being the first United States president, he warned against foreign alliances as well as political parties. We know that today his hopes would not have been fulfilled. So hence the two political parties we have nowadays. Okay, tensions with Britain and France helped lead to political parties. Jefferson wanted to help France. Hamilton, no help. And so that led to the two parties. Okay, we're almost done. The Republican motherhood. Women are encouraged to raise children to be good citizens. We see some women's rights here. Women are being raised to teach children to become good citizens. And the major point about this is they got educated, which is something which they had not really been able to do prior to this. So the Democratic Republicans were Hamilton, or the Democratic Republicans at this time. Strict interpretation, that would be Jefferson. Anti-Federalist. Federalist for the federal system would be Hamilton. So, thank you for watching Time Period 3 Crash Course, and I hope that helps you for your AP exam or in class when you're discussing Time Period 3. Thank you.